The roar of the crowd, the thrill of the game. It's the most popular sport in the world for a reason. No other sport in the world brings us such deep passion and joy. A sport that unites people, cultures, and even entire nations. This is football. But behind the goals, the passion, and the eternal glory lies a story of power, political agendas, and corruption. An international football organization with $1 billion empire that does everything it can to become even richer, no matter the consequences. Many people already know that football has a controversial side, but not many people know how sick the actions of this organization really are. And let me warn you right now, this story has some of the darkest stories you have ever heard. These aren't just secrets about your average company that pays their employees below minimum wage or neglecting environmental rules. There are stories of massive corruption and dark political agendas. Some even go as far as saying that their actions single-handedly were responsible for multiple thousands of deaths, and we can't blame them. But how can a company of this size do all these horrible things and still get away with it? Please warm up as we will go down the rabbit hole of this sickening and dark world of an international powerhouse and football organization, FIFA. May 21st, 1904, on a bustling spring day in Paris, a revolution was in the air. But this wasn't about politics or art. It was about something far more universal: football. As the world was gradually tuning into the magic of football, a handful of visionaries assembled at 229 Rue Saint-Henri to make an indelible impact on the sport. This was the day FIFA, the Fédération Internationale de Football Association, came into existence. So what was the fuss all about? Why was this day so pivotal in the annals of sports history? Robert Guérin, a French journalist and editor of Le Matin, a popular newspaper of the time, was the person pulling the strings behind this monumental gathering. However, Guérin wasn't alone. He had the backing of key figures like Carl Anton Wilhelm Hirschman from the Netherlands and Victor E. Schneider from Switzerland. These men were about to create more than just an organization. They were forming the cornerstone of what would become the world's most popular sport ever. But let's go back to that specific night. It felt like extra time in a World Cup football final. The stakes were high, and the energy in the room was palpable. Delegates from 8 countries, representing Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, and Switzerland, took their seats. Each carried the aspirations of millions of their countrymen who had started to embrace football as more than just a pastime. It was becoming a part of their national identity. They all agreed on one thing: the game they loved so much needed structure and global standards. So, on this historical night, the FIFA was founded. However, achieving unity was anything but a guaranteed outcome. Football in 1904 was like the Wild West, a place of different rules, competing ideologies, and very little oversight. Can you even imagine that Denmark played with 8 aside and other countries were experimenting with different numbers? Back in the time, there was no standardized rules for offside, free kicks, or even how long a match should last. Each country had its own interpretation, and bringing them all under a single umbrella was a task of Herculean proportions. But yeah, let's be honest, it is still hard sometimes to understand how the rules work nowadays. Even to this day, we sometimes still have to argue about some VAR decisions. The Founding Fathers faced skepticism and even mockery. The British associations, who viewed themselves as the custodians of football, were conspicuously absent. Who needs a governing body? Was a question often thrown around in sports circles. The newly formed FIFA had to win hearts and minds and prove that international football could be more than a chaotic collection of exhibition matches. It was a thrilling game, one that would extend far beyond that room and that day. The ambition to create international tournaments was there, but it would take 26 more years to realize the dream of the first World Cup. And the man who would eventually make it happen was Jules Rimet, FIFA's third president. His tenure, stretching from 1921 to 1954, saw the birth of the tournament that would come to define international football, the FIFA World Cup. The first World Cup in 1930 in Uruguay was not what we are used to now. Only 13 countries participated. The historic final was between, yes again, Uruguay and Argentina. Uruguay won 4-2 over Argentina and became the first World Cup winner ever. And so, in a room filled with 8 nations, united by a love for the game, FIFA was born. It was the start of a journey that would see football evolve from regional clashes on the pitch to a global phenomenon watched, played, and loved by billions. It was a beginning, but as with any beginning, it came with its own set of challenges, triumphs, and setbacks. I hope you enjoyed the warm-up story. I need your muscles to stay warm. You are in the starting lineup, and we are now starting the first half. In the first half, we'll delve into FIFA's economic revenue model. How did FIFA evolve into such an economic powerhouse? As FIFA's reputation strengthened in the early 20th century, a new dimension began to unfold before it, one where the romance of football merged fluidly with the world of finance. With the first World Cup in 1930, Uruguay became the stage, not just for football, but also for an exhibition of economic potential. The tournament's success paved the way for what would soon become FIFA's multi-billion-dollar empire. The financial dynamics of FIFA evolved at a rapid pace, soon surpassing just the revenue from ticket sales. By the 1980s, television had become the beating heart of global entertainment. Recognizing the surge in global audiences, FIFA capitalized on TV rights, transforming them into their golden goose. In the World Cup held in Spain, 1982, FIFA earned a seemingly modest sum of $2 million from TV rights. Yet, this was just the tip of the iceberg. 36 years later, by the 2018 World Cup in Russia, a drastic shift was evident. TV rights for this event were sold for an astonishing $3 billion, marking a 150,000% growth in just over 3.5 decades. $3 billion! So this wasn't just a testament to football's growing popularity, but also to FIFA's acute business acumen. The organization ensured that every goal, every cheer, and every heartbreak reached screens across continents, making it a universal spectacle. The Qatar World Cup final in 2022 between France and Argentina reached a global audience of 1.5 billion viewers, which is enormous compared to the 150 million viewers at the Super Bowl final from that year. But the windfall from TV rights was only a part of the vast economic machinery. Scholarships and licensing deals began flowing in, adding layers of revenue streams. Renowned brands, Coca-Cola, Adidas, Visa, McDonald's, Hyundai, Kia, just to name a few, eagerly aligned themselves with FIFA. These partnerships were worth their weight in gold. A single sponsorship deal with FIFA ensured a brand's visibility across billions of screens, translating to unparalleled market reach and brand recall. João Havelange, FIFA's president from 1974 to 1998, was a key figure during this transformation. Recognizing the untapped commercial potential of football, Havelange embarked on aggressive marketing campaigns, bringing in big-name sponsors and dramatically increasing FIFA's revenue streams. The ripple effects of these sponsorships were profound. For instance, during the 2018 World Cup, Adidas, one of the primary sponsors, sold a staggering 8 million jerseys of just the German national team. 8 million jerseys? We're still wondering how that's even possible. But the number doesn't even account for other teams' jerseys, footballs, boots, and other merchandise. The World Cup wasn't just a footballing carnival, it was a marketplace on steroids. It was the place to launch new tournament footballs, special edition football shoes, and allowed players and teams to promote themselves. Beyond the direct revenues, the economic imprint of the World Cup on host nations was significant. But what was the impact of World Cups at host nations' economics? Countries vied for the honor of hosting the World Cup, understanding its vast economic potential. The 2014 World Cup in Brazil serves as a case in point. The South American nation poured approximately $15 billion into preparations, revamping infrastructure, stadiums, and more. While skeptics highlighted concerns about potential overspending and unutilized post-event infrastructures, Brazil's government projected returns upwards of $30 billion. This return was envisaged from bolstered tourism, job opportunities, and the invaluable global exposure the event promised. However, the real, lasting economic footprints of such tournaments often waded into debates, with arguments swinging between short-term gains and long-term economic vitality. But let's put everything in context. It's not a certainty that host countries will make money. In contrast to Brazil's World Cup, we spoke about the Qatar World Cup in 2022 before. Don't be shocked by the numbers, but the cost of organizing this tournament was a staggering $220 billion. A record. Qatar invested in construction of stadiums, hospitality, transportation, and telecommunications. When it comes to the tournament's revenue, FIFA was reaping $7.5 billion of revenue, while Qatar was receiving only $1.56 billion. That's a return on investment of negative 99.3%. Negative 99.3%. But yeah, what do these numbers mean if you have too much money anyway? The matrix of choosing sponsors and partners was complex. It wasn't just about the highest bidder. The selection moved into the territories of global outreach, brand ethos, and occasionally geopolitics. Deliberations within the corridors of FIFA's headquarters often centered on balancing immediate financial gains with a vision for football's global expansion. And then, Sepp Blatter comes into play. Blatter, who had an important part in the dark sides of this documentary as well, was another long-serving and influential FIFA president. Sepp Blatter was pivotal in these discussions. With his deep-rooted connections and an understanding of FIFA's overarching objectives, he played a significant role in shaping the organization's economic strategies. As decades rolled on, FIFA's economic strength became evident. From its humble beginnings in Paris to its establishment as a global economic powerhouse, FIFA's journey was as much about the beautiful game as it was about astute business decisions and strategic partnerships. But one thing was clear. Football was no longer just a sport, it was big business. And let's give you a short preview of the next part. Sport, a big institution, and money is not a very good combination. So please, prepare yourself for the second half. When there is money, a complex organizational structure, and bad regulation, the chance of corruption is around the corner. As FIFA grew, so did the examination under which it found itself. The eyes of the world, while often fixed on the beautiful game itself, occasionally shifted their focus toward the darker, less glamorous underbelly of football administration. Central to this were the controversies surrounding decisions on World Cup hosts, most notably the tournaments held in Russia in 2018 and Qatar in 2022, in the period Sepp Blatter was president. As the final whistle blew on the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, attention quickly turned to the upcoming host announcements. On December 2nd, 2010, with much anticipation, FIFA's executive committee unveiled the hosts for the 2018 and 2022 at FIFA's headquarters in Zurich. Several countries, including England, the United States, Australia, Japan, and South Korea, had vied for the honor of hosting. Many famous persons supported the bid teams, including Prince William, David Beckham, Roman Abramovich, Ruud Gullit, Bill Clinton, and several others. As the votes were counted, there were two winners, Russia and Qatar. Nobody expected this. The world was shocked. The decision was met with a cacophony of responses. While many celebrated the prospect of taking football to new territories, others raised eyebrows at the choices. But why was the world shocked? To understand it, we will delve into both winners. Russia's bid was steeped in promise, showcasing the rich cultural tapestry of the nation and bridging the East-West divide. However, concerns were raised regarding the country's human rights record, with journalists and activists pointing to issues of freedom of speech and the treatment of LGBTQ+ communities. Moreover, there were allegations surrounding the infrastructure spending, with claims suggesting inflated budgets and misallocated resources. Despite the controversies, the 2018 event unfolded relatively smoothly. The games were lauded for their organization, the stadium's magnificence, and the warmth of the Russian people. But the lead-up had certainly cast a shadow. The selection of Qatar, on the other hand, was even far more controversial. The Persian Gulf nation, while opulent and ambitious, had no significant footballing history. Qatar was at that time the 112th of the world rankings and never played in a World Cup before. Critics immediately questioned FIFA's rationale. Was it the allure of a new frontier, or perhaps the immense financial influence that Qatar possessed? The tournament's scheduling was the first bone of contention. Given Qatar's scorching summers, with temperatures soaring above 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Can you imagine? I'm already sweating just by the thought of it. FIFA rescheduled the World Cup for November and December, a significant departure from its traditional June-July window. This decision upset major European leagues, who had to rework their schedules to accommodate. Beyond logistical concerns, the Qatar World Cup was marred by far graver issues. This was not only about human rights, LGBTQ+ communities, or freedom of speech. Reports emerged of migrant workers facing inhumane conditions. Journalists and activists pointed out the concerning death rates among these workers, with some estimates suggesting figures in the thousands by 2022. This means that FIFA and Qatar have blood on their hands. But what do they do with it? The world was shocked. Debates ignited over sports washing, using sports to distract from significant concerns or to enhance a country's reputation. And before the start of the World Cup in Qatar, many countries tried to put pressure on. Some wanted to boycott the World Cup themselves, such as Germany and Norway. A boycott would never happen. However, countries did start making statements and campaigning on human rights, such as wearing special shirts, One Love captains bands, or team photos with the hand over their mouths. Amidst these high-profile host controversies, FIFA itself wasn't spared. The organization, in its labyrinthine corridors of power in Zurich, faced its share of storms. 2015 was particularly tumultuous. One of the key players was former CONCACAF official Chuck Blazer. He helped the FBI investigate after his secret guilty plea in a 2013 trial. Together with the Swiss authorities, the U.S. Department of Justice, FBI, arrested several high-ranking FIFA officials, including former Vice President of the FIFA, Jack Warner, Jeffrey Webb, President of the CONCACAF, and Juan Angel Naput, President of the CONMEBOL. All officials were arrested on charges of corruption, money laundering, and racketeering. The allegations suggested that bribery was deeply entrenched in FIFA's fabric, with sums exceeding $150 million changing hands to influence World Cup hosting decisions and broadcasting rights. Sepp Blatter, FIFA's president since 1998, found himself ensnared in this quagmire. Though not directly implicated in the initial arrests, the pressure mounted on him. By June 2015, Blatter announced his intent to resign, a decision sending shockwaves across the footballing fraternity. Later in December, shortly after his announcement, he was suspended for 8 years on account of his corrupt activities. The man who had helmed FIFA for 17 years, overseeing its rise as an economic powerhouse, was now in the eye of a storm. This elimination of Blatter was a victory for justice. FIFA's response to these challenges were twofold. On one hand, they initiated internal reforms, vowing to cleanse the system. Committees were set up, governance structures revamped, and transparency promised. That seemed like a good step. But on the other hand, they defended their decisions, particularly regarding World Cup hosts, reiterating their commitment to taking football to every corner of the globe. So, defending your former corrupted organization without consequences? It's like losing a game with 7-0 but blaming it on the weather. The end of Sepp Blatter brought a new president in 2016, Gianni Infantino. Infantino was entrusted with the colossal task of navigating FIFA through these tumultuous waters. He emphasized a new FIFA, drawing a line between the organization's past and its future. Under his leadership, FIFA expanded the World Cup teams from 32 to 48, a move seen by many as an attempt to globalize the game further, but also criticized by purists who felt it diluted the competition's quality. In conclusion, the challenges and controversies that FIFA encountered were not just minor incidents in its timeline. They were indicative of the complex interplay between sport, politics, money, and ethics. The beautiful game, while binding communities on the field, showed cracks and divisions outside of it. FIFA's journey, marked by grand highs and stark lows, showcased football's diverse character. A game that overcame barriers yet was influenced by the imperfections of those at its helm. This was a dark and sweaty second half, but there still is time left. Let's focus on the extra time now, and let's bring some positivity. In the vast tapestry of FIFA's history, as highlighted in earlier sections of this documentary, the legacy of football's governing body has been colored by moments of brilliance and shadowed by controversy. Yet the organization's ability to endure, adapt, and progress offers a glimpse into its intrinsic spirit of evolution. As we look into the future, it's evident that FIFA's roadmap is decidedly ambitious, a trio of sustainability, technological advancements, and the reimagining of the World Cup. The murmurs emerging from FIFA's headquarters in Zurich paint a clear picture of their sustainability vision. Environmental concerns, a potent global discourse, haven't left the footballing world untouched. FIFA's recognition of this fact led to the launch of their sustainability strategy in 2022. Spearheaded by FIFA's Chief Social Responsibility and Education Officer, Joyce Cook, this initiative aims to minimize the ecological footprint of football events. Concrete steps such as the commitment to make the 2026 World Cup carbon neutral and the emphasis on sustainable infrastructure in host countries are laudable starting points. FIFA's pledge to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030 underlines this commitment. Parallel to those ecological strides is FIFA's experimentation with technology. The VAR, Video Assistant Referee system, introduced in the 2018 World Cup, was but a harbinger of things to come. While VAR had its critics, it symbolized a larger drive towards integrating technology for fair outcomes in matches. Gianni Infantino, FIFA's president since 2016, has been a fanatical supporter for technological integration. In a 2023 interview, he spoke of exploring technologies like AI for injury prevention, advanced player tracking systems, and even virtual reality experiences for fans. Football must keep pace with the world, he emphasized, signaling FIFA's forward-thinking stance. The crown jewel in FIFA's repertoire, the World Cup, isn't immune to this wave of change. Discussions have been rife about increasing the frequency of the World Cup. While purists argue that this could dilute its charm, proponents believe it could democratize the sport, allowing more nations to participate and host. But as we saw in previous parts, money is definitely an important part of the game plan of FIFA. FIFA's announcement in 2022 about considering a biennial World Cup sent ripples across the football community. The implications, financial, logistical, and sporting, of such a decision are monumental and are bound to shape the contours of international football in the decades to come. How do we plan to support the European Championships if we have a World Cup every 2 years? Addressing past criticisms is a linchpin in FIFA's future strategy. The shadows of previous controversies, especially those surrounding governance and World Cup allocations, have necessitated a pivot towards transparency. In a bid to regain trust, FIFA, under Infantino's leadership, launched the FIFA Forward program in 2022. This initiative aims at fostering transparency in financial transactions, clearer bidding processes for World Cup hosts, and stricter ethical guidelines for FIFA officials. Integral to this is the empowerment of the Ethics Committee, tasked with maintaining the organization's integrity. Its independence, underscored by its recent actions against misbehaving officials, indicates FIFA's earnestness in turning over a new leaf. But what of the World Cups that beckon on the horizon? The football community awaits with bated breath, as do I. The 2026 edition, jointly hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico, promises to be a spectacle. Not only will it be the first tri-nation World Cup, but its emphasis on sustainability and fan engagement sets new benchmarks. Beyond that, the 2030 World Cup is set to be a historically unique edition. As a quadrennial international tournament, for the first time ever, 3 countries from 2 continents will host the World Cup: Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. As a commemoration of the 100th anniversary of the first World Cup, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay will serve as nations to open the event. As we wrap up our deep dive into FIFA's projected path, a spectrum of emotions emerge. After the dark sides, we feel hope from their progress in sustainability and technological advancement. The forthcoming World Cups stirs up excitement. So, this game was an emotional roller coaster, wasn't it? We've come a long way. Now, let's dive into the final segment of our documentary and let's cool down with the highlights. Since its birth in the bustling streets of Paris in 1904, FIFA has carved an indelible mark on the global sporting map. Born from the vision of figures like Robert Guarin, Karl Anton Wilhelm Hirschman, and Victor E. Schneider, the organization, over the decades, burgeoned into an economic powerhouse. By the late 20th century, the World Cup alone generated economic impacts in the billions, such as $7.5 billion revenue from the 2022 Qatar World Cup. But it wasn't just about numbers. FIFA's influence reshaped national passions and global dialogues. However, this journey wasn't devoid of turbulence. The 21st century saw the institution embroiled in controversies, with decisions surrounding tournament in Qatar and Russia resulting in deaths among workers. Names like Sepp Blatter, Jack Warner, Jeffrey Webb, and Juan Angel Naput became synonymous with these challenges, their leadership questioned. Yet FIFA's resilience shone through. Under the guidance of Gianni Infantino, a future-forward approach emerged, emphasizing sustainability and technological integration for upcoming tournaments. As FIFA strides into the future, its past offers a blend of inspiration and caution. Its legacy, a tapestry of achievements and lessons, signifies its undeniable influence in the evolving trajectory of football's future. Through its highs and lows, FIFA remains central to the world's most beloved sport, its next chapter awaited with bated breath. We hope you enjoyed our sweating and thrilling FIFA match. If you are truly a team player, show your support and become a fan and hit the subscribe button. For the game, for the world.